Do I think he's the real Trump? No, I think at this point I don't know what the heck's going on, because no one. It's like they keep putting out these pictures of him being the same height as Biden and shorter than Prince William, and I'm like, has no one noticed that this guy did not shrink like 2 inches? This is crazy. I mean, this guy was like, he's a big guy. He's like six. I think he's like 6'3", 4". I think he's a pretty tall guy. He wouldn't.
What about the red tie, the blue tie? When he was in the blue tie, it wasn't him, and in the red tie, it was him. Welcome to the Immersive Podcast. We have an exciting guest today. You might have heard of him. His name is Sean Stone. And it's funny because I'm like, is that Oliver Stone's son? When I first heard the name, and it actually is. But Sean Stone is also very dynamic. He is an actor, filmmaker, producer. He's also a truth seeker, and he's host of Buzzsaw, one of my favorite shows on Gaia, on networks like the Tucker Carlson Network and Unified TV. And shout out to Unified TV and Gaia, because love you all, and Tucker Carlson. So welcome today, Sean. It's exciting to have you here. And I'm Jane. I'm one of the hosts of the Immersive Podcast. My co-host, Tyler, is on the Galactic Origins cruise. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak to you. So on that note, I would like you to tell me, what are you most excited about right now? Just right now, like at this moment. Would it be your new shows, projects? What is it?
What am I most excited about? Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple projects that are in the works moving forward, but that's all kind of under wraps until, I don't talk about stuff until we're published. I'm excited by the drones over Jersey story. I think that's all fun.
Let's talk about that, because I'm from I lived in New Jersey, Hoboken, for 11 years. I'm from New York. I know you're from New York too, right?
From LA, but my second home is New York.
Oh, I thought you were from New York. Oh, okay, cool. Like born and raised. Gotcha. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but I don't live there, so I get it. Okay, so for the drones, what's your theory, or what do you know? What's your intel?
I don't have any intel. I think it's blue beam kind of stuff. It's basically running experiments to see, I guess, how they're going to be able to pull off any kind of fake alien invasion story. Yeah, that's what resonates with me. It's obviously, it's pretty ridiculous when the government says, well, we don't know where they're from, and at the same time,
they did
them down already. Like, really?
They're not a threat, but let's shoot them. I mean, that makes sense. That's it.
Well, you don't know. I mean, the point is, if you don't know what they are, truly, you would shoot it down.
Right. And it's obviously that they do know, or they know the clandestine corporations or the CIA or whomever is probably involved. But there is an actual base there in New Jersey. It's the number one hotspot for UFOs. And then we're doing some testing, I know, going from another air base that was maybe Baltimore, and running these, kind of runs to experiment. So just see, how it would work, because so much of our technology has been overseas and they're trying to bring that back. So that's one perspective. Then you've got the Project Bluebeam, which we knew was going to happen, where they're trying to make people go, what is that? And until they decide how scared we are. But here's the other narrative. It's all spectrum of positive and negative in timelines, right? So I'm in the timeline where I believe that they are trying to do trickle out soft disclosures so that people aren't like, oh my God, there's a UFO. They're so used to it that just like MK Ultra, they've been brainwashed to say, oh, they've been here the whole time. What are you talking about? Instead of, I don't believe in aliens. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think doing it in a place like New York, especially New Jersey, where people like, let me tell you something. I saw this, I saw that. You're going to get people to hear about it versus like Oklahoma or somewhere where they probably have been, but no one's talked about it. So I truly believe it's everything, not one thing. Like it's quantum physics. It's basically what you believe, because it happens across, every single thing we've seen. And a big part of your research is you've seen the real dark stuff. You've seen the real, deep state. And even though I've seen that, I'm trying so hard to focus on the positive timeline, because I asked one of my favorite channelers, Tom Massari, a.k.a. Abram, who taught Bashar and all these other channelers like Lisa Royal Alt, said, should I be focusing on the children and trying to help with child trafficking and everything? I feel like my mission is to help. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you want to bring that fear? And do you want to bring that into your reality? Do you want to bring that energy into your reality? I said, honestly, I don't, but I really appreciate the people that are brave enough to do it because it still exists. I'm aware of it, but I also might be meant for something else. So I just want to thank you because I read a little bit about the work you've been doing to kind of shine a light on these darker issues that have been suppressed. And so just like the drone thing, there's good and bads, but I'm not naive to the fact that there is something nefarious sometimes going on, and there's two different, light, dark, black hats, white hats, whatever you want to call them. Something is going on behind the scenes. So can you elaborate on what you know about what's going on behind the scenes?
I don't think I particularly know more than what's available to the general public. And that's, that's the nature of our reality. As you mentioned, the quantum physics nature of it, that consciousness is everything. And so all these things are available to people.
Right.
The information that I have is not like some top secret insider information. It's generally available. When I did my docuseries, Best Kept Secret, we drew upon a lot of sources that have just been out there for decades, and we just connected dots. So I think that more than anything, my way of approaching things is to look at patterns. And so if I see a pattern, I want to maybe just help people to sort of almost, whether it's synchronicity or whether it's patterns of policy or attitudes or whatnot, I want to be able to help people to see those patterns as well. And then, then they come to their own conclusions accordingly, because as you said, when you shift your frequency and your consciousness from fear, darkness, evil into actually, no, you become the light that actually brings light into the darkness. And by looking at the darkness and facing it, you no longer have fear over it. One of the most powerful books is Anneke Lucas's, Anneke was a survivor of one of the Belgian pedophile trafficking networks. Not just pedophile, they were involved with satanic sacrifice and murder and everything like this. But her book actually, when she goes through it, it's like she actually realizes these people were just so empty, and their expression of love, that everyone is looking for love or looking to express love, and they had no other way of expressing it except in these horrible ways. And she was able to actually find compassion and love for these people that were perpetrators and predators. I have more of a view that some people just need to be executed, but the idea of compassion and love, I understand. I think it's a very powerful consciousness to be able to convey that we can heal and not just continue the cycle of violence, abuse, fear. So again, it's always a question of, when we approach these things and we learn from the experiences, and then what do we do with that knowledge when we glean that information? What do we do with it? How do we hopefully evolve into a higher state of recognizing that everything is evolving? Everything in this universe is growing. It's just that some things are growing up straight towards the light, and other things are growing crooked and sideways and into the crevices and into the darkness, because that's just their trajectory. They haven't, because of their roots, because of their past, because of what they are, that's how they grow. And I mean, look, we have a natural world that has, parasites and predators and dark, creepy things, right? And scorpions that are just purely armored for stinging and grabbing.
Always there for you.
It's really interesting, right? How nature is so diverse. So a butterfly and it has a scorpion, right?
Exactly.
That's the nature of our universe. So, can you hate the scorpion for being a scorpion? No, it's just, that's what it is. And it's likewise, I think, with some of these beings that are here, and whether they're human or possessed by entities that are very low, that are low vibration or consciousness, just traumatized humans that are, that have not done the inner work to free themselves from their trauma and from the cycle of abuse and perpetuation of abuse and pain. So, it's all a work in progress.
I love all of that. Did you, at some point growing up in Hollywood, it must have been fun and great. And, your dad's a legend, and he's created such amazing movies like JFK and Platoon and Wall Street, which I loved. All of them. They were almost hidden. I remember studying Wall Street, and there were hidden messages in it. It was the abyss and all of this, and Gordon Gekko's whole journey. I remember thinking wow, this dude's pretty cool. Oliver Stone, he must be really into symbology and understand things that are going on. So now you, as a son who's now taken it so many yards further, and you're actually bringing this information to the forefront. And I want to thank you for that, because yes, it is available, But for so long, when you're lied to and told a certain narrative, you don't even know until you wake up or some event happens or a catalyst or spirituality, whatever it is. So what was your event that made you even start to look for these things? Was it when you converted to Islam? Was it when you were young? Did you have a ET or some sort of paranormal experience? Or is it just that upbringing that...
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because as a soul, I believe we come into this life with a lot of sort of intuition, right? Like our soul's intuition, and a lot of it has to do with past life memory and understanding of what we're going to do in this life. So I grew up kind of being at, I guess, at different levels, initiated at different times in my life. I think one of the first was going to India and Nepal and Tibet at 10, going to the Potala Palace and seeing, meeting like monks and seeing, this practice of daily, ritualistic meditation, right? And the focus on the spiritual life. So that very much informed me going into so I was like 10 years old, that informed me going into my teenage years to be able to kind of recognize that we were in a materialistic society that was on the precipice. And so, I think, 12, 13, I was in Vietnam. We were like seeing the killing fields of Phnom Penh. In Cambodia, we visited the museum, the memorial to all the millions of people that were killed by the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. We saw obviously the memorials in Vietnam to the dead for the millions that were killed in Vietnam from our war there. So it's like it was a certain appreciation of death. And I think that's something that Americans have not really matured into facing. And this was, pre 9/11. Even with 9/11, it's like there's been this continuous denial of death as a culture, which at one level, it speaks to our youth and our exuberance in, like this growth phase of American history, where it's like we're the nation of pioneers and entrepreneurs. But we tend to like really have this deep fear of death, it feels. And I think that's part of the initiation process. Almost all spiritual traditions, when they talk about initiation, it's like you have to face your fear of death. You have to face your death, ego death. Even though in Christianity it's being born again, it's like you have to face death.
Right.
And so because we've always sort of had this triumphant idea that like we overcome death, we defeat the bad guys, we are the victors. Like there hasn't been a real confrontation face to face with the consequence of losing, the consequence of death, the consequence of loss, right?
Yeah.
It's like we always keep winning. Even when we lose, we don't want to really face it. We don't want to really face that we lost in Vietnam. We don't really want to face that war brings destruction and death, and it's not necessarily a net positive.
And they're all created by our government. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but even like at a psychological level.
Right, totally.
Right?
I mean, we don't have reincarnation taught to us. We don't have all of these spiritual lessons. It's kind of like, America's, it's like just cut off from that whole philosophical, and energy continues to go on. It's like, nope, you're dead. You go to, whatever, you go to heaven, whatever, or you come back, whatever people believe.
I mean, what I'm saying is that people may have religious beliefs. They might be Christians here or Muslims here or Jews here, but it's like, when I say death, it's like, they say like the pessimism, but it's almost more of like just the reality of it.
Right, like an egoic death, and also
we had not really, the material nature of us, the material drive of us was very much about winning. It's the Gordon Gekko reality. It's like,
survivalists.
We're gonna, I'm here to win. I'm here to make money and prosper, and not think about like, hey, maybe I should be a good person because I'm going to die. I'm going to lose everything. Everything will be taken from me. That kind of more spiritual.
I gotcha. So people are more just like, let me hoard all my wealth and, get rich, 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 not realizing like this is a temporary experience where spirit having a physical experience. And that, I guess, ties more to like the spirituality of the lack thereof for so long. But it seems like a lot of people are now, especially the younger people coming in, almost know this, almost have it, because their DNA or whatever.
Something shifted, obviously, culturally it was shifting, but I'm just reflecting on my adolescence and coming up in that, like, pre-Y2K.
Yeah.
And then the 2000s was a very bleak decade because we obviously had like suffered 9/11, and we just basically responded by this like endless war. And we went to like this digital culture that started to disconnect us from each other in many deep ways. Meanwhile, the fetish around celebrity and like, media, it was all so phony to me. I mean, look, the Kardashians became, these icons. It's like, that's how bad it was.
Right.
Right.
Especially interesting though, that you being in that arena, seeing it from like your perspective, some people get really caught up in it. They don't have that ability to discern. This doesn't feel so good.
Yeah. I think, everyone has to get to their time of awakening at whatever point they do. But so from my perspective, it was like these were, general, it was just different initiation points, but never really understanding, never really connecting to the culture. I think finally we are seeing the backlash against it. We are seeing the anti-Hollywood response. We are seeing the rejection of this culture that is now recognized as toxic. And, they say that everyone's a pedophile. I don't know if that's true, but I think the fundamental...
I really hope not.
It's a sick culture in Hollywood. That's the point.
Yeah.
Whether or not everyone's a pedophile, it's more importantly is saying like it was a culture that protected Harvey Weinstein, who everyone knew was a monster.
I mean, it goes back to what you say. People put so many things that were prioritized that were wrong, like getting into that film, and it's not judgment because so much of it was and is grooming and is the mind manipulation and the control and all of that. I feel bad that you have a cold, but hopefully. But yeah, I mean, just even like, I mean, I remember I'm 40 now, but like I remember being in my 20s and being like, if I was Paris Hilton, how could she not want to give all her money away and help so many people? And how could she just buy all this stuff? And then I actually apologized out loud to her. She wasn't around, but I was like, I want to say I'm sorry to her because here's perspective that we have. And the same thing is happening with all celebrities, Justin Bieber and finding out the music industry. We all put them, like Britney Spears, we all put them on pedestals. I mean, every guy was in love with her in college and she was doing the Super Bowl. And I remember being like, oh my God, I want to be like her. We were also obsessed with trying to be somebody else or wanting to be somebody else. It was almost like we couldn't love ourselves, but we also couldn't be ourselves. It was no authenticity. And it's like all of a sudden, not only is authenticity becoming such a prominent thing, you could say at the age of Aquarius or in the age of light, but we are seeing people held to task and getting in trouble or being revealed that, I don't know anybody anymore that's around excited to watch Oscar night and the Oscar, the awards. But then there's still some people that love that. And that's the thing, like their game experience, whatever you want to call it, is a buffet for everyone in a sense, because everybody has different preferences. But I'm like you, I don't have awakening experience as a child that was just so, to have that dynamic experience of seeing what it was like in other cultures and traveling. But I just knew as a child, like that I was supposed to do something for others. Like I didn't know what it was. I didn't know I was service to others. I would just be like, how can I help? Like, what can I do? And I don't think that's in everybody. It could be just something that's built into some people, because I say, like, yeah, everybody has to play a role. Like even a narcissist and egoic person, a person that has this huge ego is playing a role because they might pave the way for somebody else that's super shy and doesn't have that voice. But once that, is paved a bit, others can then follow.
Well, yeah. Well, like we're saying, this is a universe. This is a world where you have butterflies and you have scorpions. It's okay.
Exactly.
Both. And I mean, look, Trump's probably a narcissist, but he's doing it. You need to be, he needs to be what he is to do the role that he's doing.
Is he the real Trump? Can I ask you that?
Do I think he's the real Trump? No, I think at this point, I don't know what the heck's going on, because no one, it's like they keep putting out these pictures of him being the same height as Biden and shorter than Prince William. And I'm like, has no one noticed that this guy did not shrink like 2 inches? This is crazy. I mean, this guy was like, he's a big guy. He's like I think he's like 6'3", 4", I think. I mean, he's a pretty tall guy. He wouldn't.
What about the red tie, the blue tie? When he was in the blue tie, it wasn't him. And in the red tie, it was him.
Yeah.
And then
those are interesting cues. I mean, look, my instinct, because I used to study this stuff back when you mentioned Buzzsaw, 2013, we started Buzzsaw on YouTube. we were talking about like where there are multiple Obamas. There was like the Obama without the scars and the head, and the one with the scars, and the idea of cloning, right? It's a no-brainer. Like, if you're able to clone sheeps in the 90s, right? Wasn't that the first Dolly was like 97, 8?
Bro, come on. You know about like the underground bases. You know about the secret space program.
I'm saying, like, but just people have to think about it, like, logically.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you're told that you can clone something in the 90s, now understanding the nature of government and classification and technology, I also understand that things generally get out to the public about 20 or 30 years after they've been developed in the private sector, in the secret. They talk about the secret space program, the reverse engineering of alien technology,
right,
like this. So when it gets out, like cloning gets out in the 90s, that means that it's probably been around since at least the 60s.
Yeah.
And
it's been even longer. It's crazy.
Well, sure. And it's probably even more ancient if you start understanding like the alien component of this. But let's just say, like, okay, we start looking at things in a very different way, because you start to wonder, like, how much of this experience is the Truman Show in a certain sense, and certain people really deeply resembling each other, and it's like, well, I'm not saying that Zena LaVey, who's like Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan's daughter, I'm not saying that she is Taylor Swift, but
that. They look a lot alike, though.
There's some kind of clone of her, though. Easy.
See, I honestly, when I woke like up to the scary 2019, and people who were from Hollywood and would say, no, like, I saw people shape-shifting, and I saw this, and I saw that, and I'd be like, come on, I'm not going to believe that. Like, that's just insane. And then I went on a series of journeys asking and interviewing so many people. And some of these people are so legitimate that I'm like, there's no way that they would, lie about it or say anything about it. But when you find out, even with World War II and all of the experiments that were done and all of the, Operation Paperclip and bringing over all their scientists, and they've been using technology in the underground bases that they got from ETs, they have cosmic disclosure. I always talked about it in Gaia. They have a lot of experiments going on, and it's scary, but it's also kind of what this whole Earth game experience is. It's like one big experiment. So on that note, like, what piece of information on Buzzsaw did you ever come across that was just like, okay, that's it. Now I believe in anything. Like, this has just totally shifted my belief system. Was there one particular event? No, you kind of already knew it, maybe. Maybe that's why you weren't shocked. Some of the stuff is shocking they talk about in that show. Interdimensionals?
You tell me.
Have you had experience with interdimensionals? Like, do you believe in that?
Interdimensional beings? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Is it from astral traveling, or is it from your own just experience?
A mixture.
You to feel like you're dying.
Right.
But then there's no death. So it teaches people who have tried it, who have told me, I'm not recommending anything, that experience woke them up because they realized that they didn't die, like that there was something else.
Right. Well, look, I don't know if my first film that I directed was called Greystone Park. It was about our experiences exploring a haunted mental hospital in Jersey. And we explored a number of locations that were notoriously haunted. And so in the course of those, we confronted a phenomenon that's, you could call it supernatural. Disembodied voices, objects, moving, without anyone touching them, phone calls from, demonic voices. I've seen people get possessed.
Oh my God.
5, 6 different people get possessed. So, yeah, that's interdimensional. So,
totally.
As you're in a multidimensional universe, you have to accept that.
Right. So it's like ghosts. Like, people always say, oh yeah, ghosts, whatever, but those can be interdimensionals as well, or is that something that you believe are separate? It all depends.
I think that there's effects of some things that are stuck in like a time loop, right? That seem to be like ghosts or lost souls, that they just keep replaying the same events over and over. That might be a ghosting effect.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking multidimensional beings, I'm thinking more along the lines of, entities that have some level of will, not maybe as advanced as human, or I should say just different from human, different agendas. But yeah, entities that go back to all the spiritual traditions talk about them. The Christian talk about fallen angels. You've got the Book of Enoch, which was censored by the Catholic Church.
I was just talking about it the other day. I'm like, the amount of stuff they've taken out, like the Book of Enoch was so important.
Right.
He was definitely an ET hybrid. I mean, the Noah's Ark, that was a spaceship. And there's so many things that have been twisted that we've learned the opposite of.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, in Islam, they talk about the jinn, beings that are interdimensional, that
I know the jinn.
Made of smokeless fire or plasma, you could call it. And they are both positive and negative.
But now here's the question on that. So the jinn can appear to just say if you're on ayahuasca or you're taking a psychedelic or whatever it is, right? But isn't our consciousness, because we're like source energy, aren't we stronger than, because of free will, than any entity? So if you know that, right, and some demonic entity is there, you can, with your consciousness, it's one consciousness and you're creating your timeline, you can look at that demon and send love to it, and that demon could turn into butterflies. It can transmute and transform. Energy can transform based on fear, and that's why they feed off of our fear so much, and that's why they're constantly putting us in fear. So the opposite of fear is love.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, just send love to it, because then it can't get to that level, that love, and it doesn't understand it. It almost neutralizes it in a sense.
Well, that was very much our experience with these beings.
Oh, cool.
In the different, encounters, it was like when you raise your vibration to a place of peace and love, you transform your experience of the reality. You can bless these buildings, you can bless the spirits, the lost souls, the dead, everything.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm always like, it sounds like, just send love to it. But it makes sense if you're in a game where the frequency of fear and trauma that's the frequency they're trying to keep. And the highest, authenticity is a higher frequency, they say. But I think love is what we come from, and then it's all distorted. Like, we come from love, we come down with lower frequency to be in this game that we're now hopefully elevating through, service to others and people waking up. But it's like we come from this one real frequency, and then it's just all distortion based on where people are. So to hear that it actually does work, because I used to joke around like, Care Bear Steer, and like, we can just send love to it. But you just kind of told me it does. But doesn't that empower the people who are listening to this? Because it basically shows us that even though they say they can take your soul or protect your energy, you really don't need to protect your energy. You just need to believe in your energy, in the fact that we are divine source energy beings in human avatar costumes, and our soul and source is so much stronger than anything that's created within this construct that we are all collectively creating and individually creating at the same time. What are your thoughts on individual timelines and creating our own reality?
I think that we are very much creators of our own reality, in the sense that our unconscious mind, mixed with our intention, is oftentimes catalyzing the event that then occur and that we then react to. So that we're generally, whether or not we understand or not, we actually are looking to create those emotional states that we are experiencing, whether it's anger, whether it's a positive relationship, whether it's a trauma, an illness, whatever. It's like there's always something in our unconscious that is looking to experience this. And so it's much more complex than just being like, put your mind to it and you can do it. Well, your mind is tricky.
It is. And it's not, you're right, it's not that easy. We know that. So
conscious mind is very deep. So getting into our unconscious, really understanding what is driving us, what fears, what expectations, what doubts, what hopes, all these different things that are working through our unconscious. It's very difficult to, I say it's very important to and very difficult to weed through, but it's very, it's difficult to weed through, but very important to actually get to the kind of the root of what is driving us.
All right. So on that note, I'm in this spiritual healing community, and I've been trying to heal myself, and we're never fully healed, it's a journey. But I did hear that on the other side of the veil, through near-death experiences, and then also from regression hypnosis, that, and Dolores Cannon has said it, and I believe it. I think we choose a lot of what we experience or want to experience in this lifetime, but then you also have that free will to deviate from it. So, for example, maybe you chose to be this truth seeker and help people and get the information out there. But then because of your circumstances growing up, something may have happened and that makes you become, and, just say a drug addict or not go down that path. That's not the person's fault. They set up the intention to follow this path, but then they're also, going through their own experiences. But what I thought was interesting, and she said on the other side, when we're picking them from a higher frequency. So when we go in to say, oh, I want to be the person who experiences what it's like to be betrayed and murdered in this lifetime, and last time you were, and then you go down here and you actually go, oh my God, like, nobody wants that. Who wants that? So I think the subconscious part too is like the soul team, soul fam, higher part of us that has almost been programmed, like, here's your blueprint, here's what you wanted to experience. But if I have found that somebody, like, I went through depression, I went through all of that stuff when I woke up. And I noticed one thing, that if I create and find people to create with, that energy is transmuted into like a lotus flower. Because I think a lot of the energy that people come into is a creative energy. And if it's not channeled, you can implode. But I think we're creative beings that are supposed to create our own timelines and not just let life happen to us, but create it and have it go through us. So if creation goes hand in hand, then what you're doing when you create is actually probably activating you even more, and then leading you to, these awakenings and these other experiences that other people may not have had. And I think it's important, as somebody who grew up in Hollywood who actually saw this so early, to be able to share with other people that not everybody is in Hollywood is corrupt or like that. People have, these bigger perspectives, and to be that, like, not a spokesperson, but you're definitely like somebody that I'm like, wow, he grew up in that whole arena and he's so grounded, and he, is looking towards other things and to shine light on other religions and other projects. So what if you have no stop by anybody, just say with a magic wand, what project would you create right now that you would love to get out there without any restrictions? Like, if there was just, a genie in a bottle was like, here, you can create that. Is there any particular thing that you would do, or are you doing everything you want to do?
Working towards doing everything I want to do, because this universe is not about abracadabra. Its universe is all about processes, because through the process of creating something, we transform. So if it was just snap your fingers and it was done, you wouldn't, or we would not get the experience of the struggle, right? The transformative power that comes with struggling for something, working at something,
creating something.
Yeah. So creation does require some level of sacrifice. It does require some level of blood and tears and all of that, because, as you said, it's like we are here for the physical incarnation of sacrifice. Nothing is going to come without it in this world. That's why there's different forms of sacrifice. There's the sacrifice of a Christ who's saying, I will sacrifice myself, right? And then there's the sacrifice that certain God practitioners, which, they basically sacrifice care of, and that means they sacrifice others. So they will, sacrifice a child, they'll sacrifice a loved one, they'll sacrifice, someone else in their place. But something has to be sacrificed, and it's just
really
about it. Yeah, well, it's the nature of this universe. I mean, what
about a tribute, not a sacrifice? Like, can it be not like more of, you're not giving up something in pain, but you are inspired to bring something forward. Like, I agree with you. There's a lot of sacrifice, but I literally ask every day, can you make my lessons easy? Can you make them fun? Can you make them not so challenging? And I swear when I say that, I'll have a lesson that'll show up and be like, oh, I know I had to practice that, but it would be funny versus a near-death experience or something tragic that, wakes people up. Because sometimes these experiences of sacrifice get so big because the person is still doing the same thing. They haven't woken up. And so they'll get a near-death experience. It's like, we had to knock you almost out to bring you back so you can then go back. And people with multiple near-death experiences have said, I didn't get it the first time, I didn't get it the second time, but they said, this time you're going to get it. And they've had 3 near-deaths. So I get the sacrifice part.
I wouldn't call a near-death experience sacrifice.
Right. I think it's a blessing for a lot of people, but it's insight.
It's not a sacrifice.
Okay.
It's like what you're talking about is lessons. Lessons don't require sacrifices. Lessons will occur. As you said, it's a question of how you receive and implement them. So if someone is not listening, the universe will up the volume. And upping the volume can include, near-death experience or the death of a loved one or, an ailment, a serious trauma or ailment. But you're talking about lessons. I'm saying sacrifice in the sense of you have to give something up in order to receive something else.
Right. Almost like an energetic exchange.
Yeah. That's what I said. Okay. So if your cup is full, you can't receive more.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to empty the cup or drink the cup or do whatever, or give the cup to someone else, right? You sacrifice that to then receive more.
Right. I gotcha. So you're looking at a sacrifice as more of like an initiation or something that you must do or give in order to level up or to be able to get to that next level, because, you're, like you said, it's an energetic thing. So to sit there and to have all the wealth and have all the power and all of that obviously is not why we're here. We're supposed to be here to be, oneness and community.
So that's the problem has been people have been willing. So people that have all those things have been willing to sacrifice others or other things rather than something that they have.
Right. I gotcha. So they would rather, and that's like the whole, nefarious agenda, it sounds like too, because it's like, well, why don't I just, as long as it's not me, as long as it benefits me, as if like this is the only real life and that they're not going to pay some sort of karmic consequence, which is funny because the karmic consequence is going to be their own self saying, man, why did I go down there and act like such a jerk? Now I'm going to go down there and be a homeless person so I can experience that. So either way, it's not like you're going to be punished by somebody else. You're going to have your own life review and you're going to go, oh man, I need to go back there and fix this. Yeah. So that's why I always wonder why people do you want to come back here for another 26,000 year cycle and have to be in a 3D planet? I mean, there's got to be some sort of balancing out, but it just comes naturally to some people to be givers and to be service to others. And then I also believe that if we didn't have those narcissists or those people that were, service to self, then we wouldn't be able to have the preference to grow and change. Like if we came into this perfect earth where everyone's just going around like, hey, I love you, I love you, I love you. Well, then where's the learning? Where's the free will to choose? It's kind of like just being a hive mind. And so I understand that completely. And I'm all about you have to help others and do that. And every time I have done something like that, I feel like I level up. But for the people that can't do it, I almost feel bad for them because I feel like they came into the earth game to play some either role like a Bill Gates or to play some person to take all the heat. And maybe in another incarnation, they were somebody that was uplifting, a Buddha type energy. Sure. And you just don't know. So right. The whole thing is I know that when I was growing up and in New York and everything I learned from even the stuff in school, it has changed. I mean, I learned Betsy Ross sewed the first flag. That was what we were taught. And when I found out that wasn't true, and then the Ed McMahon with the balloons and the big check and publishers, I know the Mandela Effect has been, talked about so much. But that made me go, wait a minute. I know I'm not crazy. I know I saw these things. I know what they were. Right. And if you're telling me that it didn't happen, then there's some sort of memory or timeline or CERN effect going on. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we're being manipulated mind-wise?
I don't know if we're being manipulated. I do wonder if there are timeline shifts that occurred. Again, going back to the Mandela, or I call it a mandala effect. It's really more mandala effect than Mandela. The mandala is about perceiving, right? And so in consciousness, as you talked about earlier, it can all coexist depending on your perspective. It can all be true depending on your perspective. I've experienced this with the Kennedy assassination, for example, where I think that there's any number of realities that could be true. I don't know if anyone has the ultimate truth about what went down that day in terms of the forces that were involved, even into the question of did he fake his own death?
Yep.
And that's where it gets really curious.
Do you think he faked his own death? I do. I think that police officer in Dallas that looked just like him, that was who they used as a stand-in. And I think they did it because he was going after the CIA. He was going after the mob. He was basically, once you can mess with the CIA, so I'm going to dismantle it into 1,000 pieces. I mean, you're looking to be picked off. And I think he knew it. So they set it up that way. And then my question is, where do the people who fake their death go? Where do the supposedly Michael Jacksons and the Whitney Houstons and all of these celebrities that, have spoken up and gotten to this? So I asked this famous channeler, I said, well, where are they going? It's like a protection program. And they go, they're going to a different timeline. So I said, well, how does one get to a different timeline? Because you change your frequency every quadrisecond. So aren't we always in a different timeline? And then she said, actually, with technology, there's a device that can be used that can basically put you in another timeline. And we have that technology. So then I'm thinking, okay, here we go, DARPA, underground programs. But if we have jump gates that got us to the moon without actually having to physically go through the Van Allen belts, because that was not possible, people would die. So they still got to the moon, but they used jump gate technology that's available in these underground bases. Yeah. That's really far out there. So, people are like, what? This is stuff that you can actually find, like real information, CIA, government reports. But again, nobody's looking because something is keeping them in a frequency of must go to work, must do this, must do that, and call it brainwashing or programming. But I also think that there's frequencies being sent out like Havana syndrome. And we're in this frequency war where we have to get a mass amount or a certain amount of people, as the awakening is, to just keep finding love and raising their frequency and compassion so that we can all rise up together. I don't know. That's my sappy thing.
I think that's generally correct.
We shall see. I mean, again, every perspective's correct. So that's why I always say to people, you can't get mad at somebody else for having a perspective or a view, because if everybody had the same perspective of view, we would just be drones. And we wouldn't be quantum. And if a computer can have a 0, 1 or a 0 and 1, and it still can't conceptualize exactly how it does it, just through a state of, being really cold. Well, I think we have the capacity to do something more quantum than we are. And if we only use 1% spectrum of our visual spectrum, then what if there's interdimensional going right through us right now? I mean, I believe they're all around us. We just can't see them. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they're actually closer than they are? They're right around us?
What is space? I mean, if we're talking multidimensionality, it's impossible to gauge what is distance.
Right. Because it's just a coordinate. It's not even something that it's because what they say in outer space is that they can actually collapse and fold and make a wormhole. Sure. Or they can go from one point to another like we've seen in Star Trek, but it's coordinates. It's not like they're actually moving physically. It's almost like that's, a lower form of physics. They can just boop, boop, boop. But that's all,
The old joke in the old days, the Catholics used to say, how many angels are on the head of a pin? Right? It's, we have how many atoms inside of our being. You can't even see them.
That's right. I remember those electron microscopes and they'd show you.
Where is God? I mean, it's just it's not out there. I mean, it's all within. It makes you just wonder, are we even looking outside of us, or this is all just a holographic projection?
Exactly. It's actually coming from within us, and the projection that's coming from your pineal, from your avatar, from your whatever, it's like a dream. But again, people are looking outside of it, whether it's, I got to have this power, have this wealth. And I think that's all shifting now. But people still don't realize that a lot of it's that we've been trained to think we're not powerful at all. And this is coming from someone who's insecure. I'm not coming from this confidence, we're divine source energy. I'm still working on believing this. But if we are here having this experience and we are divine source energy incarnate, then we have to start believing it, not feeling like the government can tell us what to do. Or this is, religion tells you what to do. I'm not going to eat meat on Friday because, well, are you a good person? Because you can go to church or you can study whatever, but do you treat your neighbor nice? Do you do you have compassion for a homeless person? Or do you automatically write them off as a drug addict? Because that's not the case. I mean, these are all the lessons. We're all one. And we're just seeing ourselves in different roles that we probably asked each other to play at some point. And if it's what you do with that, are you just generally have the intention of doing good? Because remember, if you're religious growing up, but I remember the story of the man who gave thousands of dollars of wealth and silver away versus the man who only gave, a couple of pennies. And the lesson is that for the man who gave those pennies, that was most of his money, all of his money. The other guy had so much that it was just throw it, no big deal.
Yeah.
And that's the sacrifice part. I feel like you mentioned too, is giving something up. even though you don't know if it's going to go somewhere, there's no intention that, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get in heaven. It's just like you make that offering or you do that sacrifice, and then you level up in the game.
Yes,
Cool.
sure.
Tell me something nobody knows about you. Would you be able to share some sort of like funny, quirky, or even just interesting factoid?
I don't know. I don't know.
I can think of one.
Sure.
Not many people love your
Sure.
middle name. Did you change it to Ali?
I have a few names, but Ali is one of my names. Yeah, Ali is
Very cool.
a spiritual name.
Yeah, very cool. And then what was your biggest takeaway when you converted at 27? Like, what was your major, was it just that we've been lied to so much or misunderstanding other religions, or is it something bigger?
No, it was not even supposed to be public. I don't know. This was the Iranians trying to capitalize on it. It was not supposed to be public.
I gotcha.
I
I thought you were right about Argo and all of the ways they made us perceive certain things in like the media. And I think it's important for all those perspectives because you were even saying before, like Vietnam, all of the way we perceived what it was is the opposite of what it really was, and a lot of these things, these wars.
It's not so much that it's the opposite. It's just much deeper, and many more perspectives and layers than what's shared.
Okay. So what about, do you think there was a portal there? Like the portal in Iraq? Because I believe that was one of the reasons that.
Yeah, I wonder about the Iraq war, if there was trying to access stargates, as you mentioned, portals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really clear. I haven't seen enough evidence, to really be sure that there is a portal there.
Right.
There's certainly a lot of spiritual energy in these, in the Middle East.
Well, we know there are no weapons of mass destruction, so there's definitely something else there.
Yeah, the weapons of mass destruction. I don't know. Like all that was just so interesting as far as the selling of the war to take out Saddam. Was it as simple as, Israel wanting to see Saddam go? Or was it the deeper layer of an ancient spiritual war and, as you said, accessing certain maybe ancient technology and artifacts and things like this?
Mm-hmm. You just touched on something too, like an ancient spiritual war. So I truly believe that we're at this time that we came here, that everybody wants to be on Earth. So these supposedly billions of souls are fighting to get here, even in clones and fake bodies. But it's because we're at that merging point of going into, this age of Aquarius, the age of light. But every timeline from like Atlantis to Lemuria to ancient timelines of warrior stories, it's like they're all coming back to surface and all merging into like one. Because, I don't know about you, but I woke up in 2019 and had visions of Atlantis. And I'm like, I thought Atlantis was not even real. It was just like a casino in the Bahamas that I've been to. Like, I didn't. And then I had to go, am I crazy? What is this? And then I met Sarah Bressman Cosme, and she had all these, experiences doing QHHT, which, have you ever done QHHT or regression therapy? You need to. I mean, you've got probably so much within you that even more information to share. But when I met with her, and her books were The Hypnotist Guide to Atlantis, and then another one is Under the Sphinx. As I read her books, I got flashbacks of Atlantis and Lemuria. And I'm like, so does that mean it existed? Like, is this all? And to some people it did. And there might be some artifacts, but a lot of it was ET type of technology that, just for leaving Atlantis. Right? There's oceans within within our Earth that are bigger than the oceans on top of the Earth. So there's definitely something going on. What are your thoughts on any of that? No? Well, what about your show? Okay, so you have this amazing new series that you worked on called All the President's Men. And that is a lot of truth and a lot of topics that, are, I would say, you have to be pretty brave to approach them. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me, like, what made you want to tell this truth that is, so risky to get out there? Like, what drove you to do that?
What makes it risky? I don't know.
Okay, so this is funny because this is the whole spectrum. It probably isn't risky, but to me, when we're talking about certain topics of, collusion and all of these things and just not to get into too much of the emails and then Podesta and all the other things like that stuff, I don't know how deep it goes to who it's tied to and if it's like poking the bear, because I always feel like as you go deeper and darker, you're getting closer to those entities that were once running this whole planet. Now, that just might be my own fear, or the deep state government not, wanting people to speak out or speak about stuff. I mean, you tell me, is it science? Are you saying it's not all truth, or You're just not fearful at all?
Not All President's Men deals with George Papadopoulos, Roger Stone, General Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, Carter Page, and Kash Patel, and Tucker Carlson. Those insured people, because we're talking about the takeout of Trump's first administration, right? So that's targeting of the people, his advisors, and basically the people like, in particular, Flynn, Page, and Papadopoulos and Stone, who were targeted by like Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI investigation, and then by the Mueller investigation to basically try to, frame them as Russian assets or, colluding with Russia. And that's very much the beginning of the story. And then we get into the Ukraine impeachment against Trump. And then finally we get to like the election of 2020 and the January 6th, fake coup. All of these things are, they're basically they build upon each other as we go through the series.
That's awesome. I thought it went like a little bit more intense. So I'm actually glad you told me that, because I want to watch it. It's on Tucker Carlson's network. So I'll sign up for that because I love Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's such a, person that has brought so much truth forth as well. But that's good to know, because I was actually a little nervous about talking about it and I wanted to talk about it with you. But that's good to clarify that it's more about the all of this coming to light, because I know they just did a settlement as well. $15 million had to be paid for, defamation from all of the stuff that they had said that wasn't true. So even these things coming to light make me feel more hopeful than I was a couple of years ago when I didn't see, no one was seeing any justice. And the thought that all these people or certain people would actually be held to task didn't seem possible. And now you're looking at like every day in the media, there's something else coming out.
Well, because of the election, I think that was such an important election. It really it was like a litmus test of what we were willing to take as a country. And for 4 years, I think it was a very dark time period to this 2020 in this country. People feeling obviously censored, lied to, basically intimidated and bullied by the Biden administration. It was just so blatant that the backlash was this election, and then the tide really seems to be turning. And it's like, and every day you see these things like, Bobby Kennedy's been talking about the seed oils, and then, now they're writing articles saying, it looked like the seed oils are part of contributing to the rise in colon cancer. They say
he's awesome, by the way, like every single thing from fluoride to the chemicals in the water and everything that he's done for New York and everything that he's vaccines for so long that he has talked about. I mean, literally, I won't get into too much of it, but I was the day before at my pediatrician and a doctor that was supposed to not give vaccinations because, I'm just trying to bypass the 26 doses and all of that that they give a child, which is insane. And even they said, if we don't give at least some of the vaccines, we can't stay in business. Like we have to, like pediatricians have to by law, or they won't be able to make any money. Like that's how much it's controlled. And that pissed me off even more. And I agreed to 1 because I was like, fine, instead of 4, then 1. The next day, the RFK Jr. and Trump call gets leaked about how vaccines and children. And I'm like, that is the test. I was supposed to go with my own belief system, my discernment, and I still followed it. But that's where it's so hard to say, well, okay, I believe in this, but how do I know I'm not just putting my beliefs in front of the welfare of others? And how do you deal with something like that? Because that's, part of a sacrifice too.
Are we talking about vaccines?
So, for example, the vaccines and RFK Jr., I know you were starting to go into Bobby, all the things he was doing. But I did, and I got all excited about that vaccine thing. So I'm just going to stop it there and go back to your topic. But I just wanted to say that thank you if he's listening or ever hears this, because in 2007, I worked with Autism Speaks for one of the children's books I was writing. And all these moms told me the same thing. And I didn't understand or believe it was true at first. Like I believed them and that experience. But they'd be like, my child was speaking to at the MMR, this and that. And, the Earth game is interesting because they want you to be sovereign and make decisions and have free will and have choice. But then some of those choices can affect so many others. And it's like, well, are you selfish for making those choices, or are you being brave?
But an example, on the vaccine front, or what, give me an example of something that would be selfish.
Well, that's what I mean. Like with the day before, I felt like I had to decide between my belief systems, which would have been selfish if I said my belief on vaccine, and then my child actually got sick or whatever, because I went with my belief system. But then the next day, after I still went with the doctor, that tape got leaked. And that tape was actually saying like, you should have went with your beliefs because what are the chances the next day? Hang out. So with what you were saying, I know I interrupted, but go ahead. You can remember.
Right.
Okay. It's not a question, it's just a conversation. So you tell me what question would be good for you if I said, okay, out of all this stuff coming out on your show, out of what you were just talking about on All the President's Men, like, was there a sacrifice of some sort that you had to make with all the people in Hollywood believing one thing and you're going against them? I would think that you might have lost some friends in the process or some,
No, not. Well, I mean, I've been doing this stuff for 15 years. It's not like I'm new to this.
I know, but like, okay, for example, there's so many people, like even Charlotte Hines, Bobby, RFK Jr.'s wife. I know she got flack from Hollywood because of, it's because there's a certain mindset, and I don't know where this comes from. I don't know if it's like a frequency, but, they seem to kind of, at least it appears.
Yeah, people, there's always consequence to taking action that's publicly not part of the consensus. As I said, I've been doing what I've been doing for 15 years, though. Was Cheryl Hines flagged by Hollywood? I don't know. I mean, Bobby's been controversial since about 15 years as well, because that's when he first started coming out about the vaccine, the Mercury vaccine issue. It was about 2000, I want to say 2008 roughly, but can't remember exactly when. It was in the mid to late 2000s, because before that he was on the DNC, he was on the cover of like Rolling Stone, all these magazines. So, he took his stand a long time ago, though, and it affected him, of course. It affected his ability to get support, from people, the Clintons, people like that. They used to be friendly with him. They stopped talking to him. So all these things, there's a hit, but it hasn't stopped him from doing what he's doing.
Can you share, though, what one sacrifice from you was? Since you mentioned that there's this level of sacrifice, do you feel like there's something you'd want to share that you had to sacrifice to
what?
To get to the next level, to get to your, like you said, that you have to sacrifice something to get, certain experiences. And you've been doing this for so long, for 15 years. Before that, did you have to sacrifice anything? Like, I'll give you an example. I had to sacrifice a lot of friends and family that thought I was insane and wanted to do an intervention. And because I was, looking into things and asking questions and learning, and I even created like a secret Instagram page 5 years ago. It was called like the Pink Tower or something, and brown notebook. And my sister told my mother, who wasn't even on Instagram, she's posting about aliens and all this like weird out of body stuff and consciousness. So they had an intervention. So for me, I had to sacrifice a lot of my New York City friends and other people that were like, she's gone a little strange, and some other things. And I was in a biotech gene therapy job where nobody wanted to talk about this. I mentioned Mandela Effect, and they looked at me like I was insane. They were like, well, no, it happened. I'm like, no, but it didn't. But no, I remember like it. So I was living this double life until I quit my job recently to just kind of create and figure out like what I'm going to do full time, which is definitely create somehow. And I know, and I trust the process that it'll happen organically. But I started to get like a visceral reaction from what I was doing. There was something within me that was pushing me, like, and forcing me, just like creating music. I mean, I created 40 songs in like a 4-month period. Sometimes there's a force that comes through you that makes you do something and you don't know where it comes from. Have you ever had that experience, at least?
A force that comes through you to do something. Yeah, that was what I was getting at with the acceptance of Islam. When I was in Iran, there was different forces involved that are invisible to the eye, and I've had that a lot in my life. And I just say it's guidance, and I try to follow the guidance as much as possible. Oftentimes, the guidance will show itself with a vision. Other times, it'll just create situations where something like a door will open or a door will shut.
Exactly, and breadcrumbs to follow, almost like the synchronicities. But, is it like a knowing? I just get a knowing. I don't know. I've never seen a vision. Some people are like, oh, Archangel Michael came to me, or, I was able to. For me, it's just like, I know I have to do this. I don't know how. It doesn't make any sense. I just know. Like, is that your thing too? Or is it more of your clairaudient?
No, I don't hear anything. I don't hear voices or see things. I just get hits and pings. And yeah.
So you're super intuitive, obviously, if you're just getting a knowing and you're able to follow that. And do you think breathwork, meditation, any type of special diet or anything that has enhanced that? Or is it just who you are?
No, I don't think it. I think that it can enhance it. Absolutely, I think these things can enhance it. But I don't necessarily practice any.
I gotcha. That's good to hear because I hate meditating. I mean, I love meditating, driving to music or getting in my head and creating. I find that to be meditation with like music in the background. But when people are like, oh, yes, you have to sit in meditation and I'm like, I get so bored. And I also, in the portable sauna, is like another form of meditation because like with the red light and the heat and, you're just kind of like in an altered state. Yeah. So for people out there, if look at Sean Stone, he's super, super tapped in, super like not, believing the mainstream narrative, creating, grew up in Hollywood and, it still doesn't have to like, totally go vegan and do all these things. Are you vegan? Actually, shouldn't have said that before. Well, that's refreshing because I feel like there has to be like a normalcy to this experience where, you don't have to just completely become a Tibetan monk to levitate. Like you have to.
Well, I don't levitate, so I don't know.
You haven't levitated yet? Man, that sucks. I can't. It's so fun. Oh, we're going to love it. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But I used to have dreams about flying and lucid dreams all the time. And like, I think that's for me what made me feel like this was such a dream because they were so real. But I would always like have a weird test in my dream. Like, okay, I know this is a dream if I do this. And this is really embarrassing for anybody who's going to hear this and we'll wrap it up soon. But I'm really modest, so I like don't like to just, take my clothes off, whatever, like people, like spring break stuff. So my test for my lucid dream was whenever I kind of thought I was having a dream, I'd be like, would I take my clothes off? And if I would, I immediately knew it. I'd be like, oh my God, it's a dream. And then I could do whatever I wanted to. And I literally, it was like the most coolest experience. And it's so much like that when you're in the dream of life, like your avatar is not, we're conscious, we're not sleeping when it goes somewhere else. Now we're here. We can focus on things. And if we know that we are lucid enough to create, then we can actually create something new and different or pull that energy towards you like you were doing when you said people just show up or doors open. But isn't that just you projecting what you want ahead so that it can simultaneously and quantumly be attracted back to you? Do you believe in like the law of attraction?
Yes, I do.
Good. Like you've already done so many projects. Like what's next for you? Are you still, you don't know?
Well, just like I said, I don't talk about what's next until it's out.
Okay. And I'm the same way because I don't like to like ever, also, I don't know if you do it from like a superstitious point of view, but I do it from like anytime I've ever got excited and told somebody like it's kind of like you almost have to grow it inside you and keep that idea and that dream protected in a sense till it's like manifesting and then like people will just show up.
Yes.
Cool. We're very similar,
I think so.
Thank you, though. This is very enlightening conversation because it was like therapy for me. You helped me.
Oh, really?
Go through. Yeah, I feel lighter.
Okay.
Yeah, especially with the whole demonic thing because that was my I really hope I'm right about this because what if, if I ever encounter one and it doesn't work? So I honestly just wanted to thank you for this. I would say this is probably one of the best experiences for me in a while because I am just coming into this new energy where it's like a lot of people are feeling it. It's like you have to get out there and do something. You don't know what to do. You just have to do something. It's time. It's go time. It's time for this mission. So this is awesome. Thank you so much. Where can people find your work, your series, anything?
The best place to go is just to my website, seanstone.info.
Cool.
And that has it.
Excellent. And look for All the President's Men on Tucker Carlson's network and all of your other projects that you're probably going to work on or have coming out soon.
It's all.
And thank you so much.
Of course. It's a pleasure. It's good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you too. All right. You take care of yourself and I'm sure you got a busy day. I don't have much going on, so I think I'm going to work on a new music video for my DJ music that
nice.
Some force is making me do. But I'm also here to say to everybody, anybody can do anything these days if you're creative. So if anybody out there wants to create with me, co-create, that's what I do. Go to We're All in This Together and the Immersive Podcast. And we thank you guys for everything. And thank you, Sean. So take care. And hopefully we'll catch up and talk again soon. All right. Take care. Bye. I'm going to stop recording. Where's the record button?
Where's the record button?
Do I think he's a real Trump? No, I think at this point I don't know what the heck's going on because no one. It's like they keep putting out these pictures of him being the same height as Biden and shorter than Prince William, and I'm like, has no one noticed that this guy did not shrink like 2 inches? This is crazy. I mean, this guy was like, he's a big guy. He's like six. I think he's like 6'3", 4". I think. I mean, he's a tall. He's a pretty tall guy. He wouldn't.
What about the red tie, the blue tie? When he was in the blue tie, it wasn't him, and in the red tie, it was him.